Before we get started tonight, take a second to like the video if you actually enjoy this kind of content. And if you're feeling generous, drop a comment with the time and where you're tuning in from. It's always weirdly comforting to know someone's trying to fall asleep in Missouri at 3 a.m. with this playing in the background. Okay, get your blanket. Turn off that overhead light. Buggy. Muddy. A place with no toilets, no soap, no toothpaste. Just bark shelters, berry stains, and 1,000 ways to smell weird before noon. Congratulations. It's morning in the mid-Atlantic, around the year 1450. You live somewhere between what people today call Pennsylvania and Delaware. But there's no Pennsylvania, no Delaware, no state lines, no country, no plumbing. You're waking up in a world where the word hygiene doesn't exist yet. But don't worry, the smells still do. Your eyelids are sticky. You're sleeping in a longhouse, and no, it's not as romantic as it sounds. It's long, sure, and it is, technically, a house, but it's also a log and bark oven of communal humidity. There's no mattress, no pillow, no nice little diffuser steaming lavender into the air. Just you, some furs, a bit of woven reed mat, and a fire pit smoldering in the center that did its best to smoke the bugs out last night, and failed. Your back hurts because you're 17, which is basically midlife here, and you spent the night lying on a lumpy mat of cattail stalks, twisted just enough to poke one vertebra at a time. There's a dull ache in your jaw because you chewed on acorn bread for dinner and forgot that acorns are nature's way of sanding down your teeth. It's still mostly dark. A few shafts of grayish light slip in through the gaps in the bark walls. Somewhere near your feet, someone's infant cousin is grunting in their sleep. You can smell them. Somewhere else, someone has started stirring a pot over the fire. The wood crackles. The smell of burning fish skin rises up and hits your nose before your brain is ready. And this is just how your day starts. You sit up, slowly, because if you do it too fast, the world tilts. The longhouse is filled with smoke, and your eyes are watering. Your hair, if you have any left that isn't tangled beyond hope, is sticking to your face. You're wearing the same clothes you wore yesterday and the day before that. A breechcloth if you're a guy, maybe a woven skirt if you're a girl, maybe just a lot of fur and sweat if you're old and done pretending to care. Your outfit doesn't change unless the seasons do. Even then, it's just a question of how many layers of itchy deerskin you feel like adding. Now you stand up, carefully, because the floor is packed dirt, and someone probably spilled fish oil on it last night. And stepping in cold fish oil before sunrise is a bad omen. Your feet are bare, or if you're lucky, you've got a pair of soft leather moccasins, which, yes, feel nice, but they also trap in heat, moisture, and every fungus known to woodland kind. So now your morning routine begins, except there's no bathroom, no sink, no mirror, no routine. You step outside the longhouse and into the swampy dawn air. The sun's rising somewhere over a stand of chestnut trees. There's a light mist hanging in the clearing, and the mosquitoes are already awake. One lands on your arm before you've even yawned properly. You smack it and smear it by accident, and now you're wearing mosquito. The air smells like wet bark, stale smoke, and whatever's fermenting in the pit behind the cookhouse. You stretch. Something cracks. That's probably fine. You look around. Chickens don't exist here yet. Pigs? Also number. But you've got dogs, semi-domesticated, sometimes helpful. Sometimes they poop near the water source. Today they're sniffing your ankle. You try not to step in anything, and now you've got to relieve yourself. There is no latrine, no outhouse, no polite privacy fence. You walk a short way past the edge of the clearing to the usual spot, which, again, is just a spot. If you're modest, you duck behind a bush. If you're not, you just squat. Nature calls, you answer. And then you try not to think about the fact that this is the same trail everyone walks barefoot. You try not to think about what happens when it rains. Spoiler, it washes it all right into the creek, and you still haven't brushed your teeth. But let's get one thing clear. That's not a thing. You chew on a twig. Not because you're being quirky or spiritual. You do it because it's better than nothing. A frayed twig can scrub off the worst of yesterday's pottage crust. Sometimes it's sweet birch, which almost tastes minty if you use your imagination. Most days it's just bark, just enough to feel like you're doing something about the grime clinging to your molars. Your teeth are stained, uneven, and slowly grinding down to nubs from all the grit in the cornmeal. But hey, no one else is doing any better. You spit. It lands on your foot. There's no water basin, no rinse and repeat. Just spit, wipe, and move on. Breakfast is happening whether you want it or not. Back inside the longhouse, someone is stirring a pot that smells like last week. It's mush. It's always mush. Ground corn, water, sometimes beans, sometimes squash, and if you're blessed by the food gods, a tiny scrap of smoked fish dropped in by accident. There's no salt, no sugar, no spice, just warm gray porridge scraped from the bottom of a cracked clay pot. You slurp it with a wooden spoon that someone once chewed on as a teether. You try not to notice the splinter. You're eating this bowl of warm blandness while still scratching at the bites on your shins, because mosquito season lasts forever and your skin is a smorgasbord. By the way, no one's washed their hands. And now it's time to get to work. Welcome to survival. So now that you've eaten your warm bowl of beige despair, it's time to do what everyone does after breakfast in 1450. Work until you forget what resting felt like. You step outside, again. This time, the sun is up, the smoke is clearing, and your body has fully remembered that you slept on a mat so thin you could feel every rock under it. Your knees already hurt. That's normal. You're going to squat, lift, carry, haul, and possibly dig a shallow trench today, so you may as well start embracing the pain now. You walk across the village, past the fire pit, past a few sleeping dogs, and over a patch of ground that smells like someone dumped fish guts there a week ago. Which they did. It's fine. That's just where they dump things. You don't really have trash, just designated areas of decay. And guess what's buzzing above them? Flies. So many flies. The same ones that will absolutely land on your lunch later. You head toward the river. You're collecting water today. That's your job. And it sounds easy. Just water, right? Until you remember what that actually means. First, you've got to get to the river. It's about a 5-minute walk if you don't stop to itch or trip over a root. The trail is lined with brush, mosquitoes, and mud that tries to eat your shoes. When you arrive, the water looks fine, if you're squinting. It moves. It sparkles in the sun. It also smells like wet fur and disappointment. That's because it's filled with runoff from every upstream bathroom bush and that one dog who treats the river like a personal jacuzzi. But this is your water. You dip your clay pot into it, watch the little specks swirl and carry it back. It's heavy. There's no handle, just a rough lip digging into your palms. Halfway through, you spill some on your leg. It's cold and definitely not clean. Now you're wet and itchy. Congratulations, you've just achieved 15th century hydration. Back at the longhouse, Someone's waiting to boil the water before it's used for anything important, like cooking, or maybe washing a pot, but not for drinking, obviously. You'll drink it raw later and roll the dice. Some people in your family prefer to boil it, some don't. Either way, everyone's stomach hurts at least twice a week, and that's just life. You'd think with all this water hauling, someone might get to bathe, right? You're hilarious. Bathing is not a routine. It's an event. It happens when the stars align and someone remembers, hey, we're all starting to smell like smoked skunk. Even then, it's not so much bathing as get in the river and splash water at yourself while pretending you're not freezing. Soap? Never heard of it. Sometimes you rub your skin with crushed herbs or scrape it with sand or ashes. Does it help? Maybe. Does it make you feel cleaner? Not really, but you do it anyway because someone once told you cedar smoke masks the smell of feet. And speaking of feet, yours are not doing great. They're blistered, calloused, and lightly fungal. You walk barefoot whenever your shoes fall apart, which is often. You've stepped in 3 different types of poop this week. You've scratched them raw in your sleep. There's a beetle bite on your ankle the size of a fingernail and you're ignoring it because that's just how things work. If it swells, you'll put crushed bark on it and hope the forest gods are in a forgiving mood. But don't worry. The bugs aren't just on your feet. They're everywhere. Fleas live in the bedding. Lice live in your hair. Mites live in the hides hanging from the rafters. You're never really alone. There's always something crawling on your arm or your neck or worse, inside your clothing. You've given up swatting them. You just accept the bites, the welts, the slow transformation into a walking buffet. And yes, everyone else is going through it too. No one is judging you, because they can't. They're too busy scratching. Now let's talk about clothing. You own 1 outfit, maybe 2, if you're rich in fabric and lucky in life. And by fabric, we mean deerskin, bark cloth, or woven fibers that feel like sandpaper if you sweat too much. Your tunic smells like campfire, mold, and body. You've washed it in the river twice, which did exactly nothing except make it wet and attract fish flies. It doesn't dry properly. It chafes when you walk. It's stiff in the mornings. Sometimes you hang it in the sun, but then birds poop on it, and the cycle begins again. Underwear? What's that? You wear what you wear, and everyone sees what they see. Modesty is more of a concept than a reality, and there's only so much you can hide under 5 square feet of woven grass. It's now late morning. The sun is higher. The air is thicker. The sweat is constant. You're helping dig up the storage pit today, which sounds easy until you remember the pit is filled with last season's corn, dried beans, and the occasional squirrel that found its way in and died of regret. The smell hits you first. It's sharp, wet, and sour, the kind of smell that lingers in your nose for hours. You scoop out handfuls of crumbling grain and find mold underneath. Half of it is still good, which is a win. You dry it by the fire, wave away the bugs, and pretend the green fuzz isn't real. And when you snack on a handful later, you chew carefully, because the corn is mixed with grit, literal stone. It was ground on a stone slab, and bits of the slab came with it. So every bite is a gamble. Crunch, grind, crack. There goes another tooth. But it's fine. You've got a few left. Now it's midday. The sun's high. The air is the consistency of old soup. You're sweating under your arms, down your back, behind your knees, and somehow also inside your ears. You didn't think ears could sweat. They can. The bugs are out in full force now. The flies are louder than the birds. You wave them away with one hand while trying to patch a broken fish trap with the other. The trap smells like fermented mud. That's because it's been sitting in a creek since last week, and a frog tried to die in it. You pull it out, gag slightly, and keep going, because someone has to. And today, that someone is you. You sit in the shade for a minute and drink some of your precious river water. It's warm. There's a floating thing in it. You stare at it, then drink around it. You tell yourself it's just bark. It's definitely not just bark. Your stomach gurgles immediately. That's fine. It does that most days. You take a breath and try to appreciate the little things, the wind, the trees, the way the neighbor's toddler is currently screaming because a caterpillar touched him. That's relatable. But it's hot, and you're sticky, and your skin is starting to feel like it's wrapped in damp wool. Which is weird, because you're not even wearing wool. You head down to the creek again, not for water this time, for washing. You strip down to the bare essentials and wade in. The bottom is squishy. It smells like rotten plants and fish poop. There are little things touching your legs. You try not to scream. You wash your arms, your legs, your face, kind of. You splash a little water under your armpits. That counts. No soap, no cloth. Just you, your hands, and a vague idea of what clean is supposed to feel like. Which this does not. You dunk your head under water and come up choking because you forgot to close your mouth. You get out of the water a few minutes later feeling not cleaner, just wetter. The mud clings to your feet, your shirt sticks to your back, and there's a snail in your moccasin. You toss it. The moccasin, not the snail. The snail's fine. You're done. Back at the longhouse, you sit near the fire and try to dry off. The smoke makes your eyes sting, but it keeps the bugs away, so you breathe through it. The fire smells like pine and desperation. Your clothes steam on your body. You start to itch again. You scratch under your arm, then your neck, then that one spot between your shoulder blades that you can never quite reach. It's a dance, a deeply unpleasant one. Someone offers you a piece of dried meat. You take it. It's chewy, very chewy. It might be rabbit, might be squirrel, might be last winter's mystery. It doesn't matter. It's food. You chew. You swallow. You feel full enough to forget the smell of the fish trap for 5 minutes. And now it's time to do more work. Because that's what this life is. Wake up, hurt, eat, work, eat, hurt, sleep, repeat, and occasionally scratch yourself so hard you draw blood. You're helping repair the smokehouse now. The structure is old. The roof leaks. The wood is rotting in places. And something keeps nesting in the rafters. You climb up with a bundle of thatch and a prayer. You patch the holes. You swat the hornets. You almost fall twice. Then you realize you've been standing in squirrel droppings the whole time. That's fine. You'll never get the smell out of your feet anyway. You finish the patchwork and climb down, wiping your hands on your already filthy tunic. The sweat has dried in salty patches. Your skin is sticky. You're itchy again. You try to ignore it. Now it's almost evening. Dinner is a communal affair. Everyone gathers around the fire. There's a pot of stew. Again. It's got corn, beans, something green, and possibly a bone. You don't ask questions. You just eat it. It tastes like warm grass. You pretend it's good. You smile at your cousin, who is currently picking a beetle out of his portion. He shrugs and eats around it. You do the same. You finish your bowl and rinse it with a handful of water from the bucket. Not clean water, just less dirty water. You wipe the bowl with your sleeve and put it back on the shelf. Done. Now comes evening hygiene. If you're wondering what that means, so is everyone else. You rub your teeth with a twig again. This time it's sassafras, which actually tastes okay. You try not to poke your gums. You fail. You taste blood. You rinse with more not clean water. Then you scratch your scalp. Something moves. You pretend it didn't. You lie down on your mat of woven reeds and furs. It smells like old feet. That's because it is made of old feet. Yours, your cousin's, maybe the dog's. You cover yourself with a hide blanket that was definitely not aired out this season. It smells like barn, but you don't know what a barn is, so you just accept it. You scratch your leg, then your arm. Then you feel something crawl across your stomach and you slap it blindly. You hit yourself. The bug gets away. You lie still. The fire is crackling. The smoke rises up and into the rafters. You close your eyes, and now you itch more. Your back is sweaty. Your thighs are sticking together. Your hair is in your mouth. You try to sleep, but someone's baby starts crying, and then the dog howls, and then someone farts, and it echoes. Welcome to nighttime. You wouldn't last a day. You wake up to frost on your nose, not outside, inside, on your nose. It's late autumn now, which means winter is creeping in like a tired raccoon, uninvited, stubborn, and stinking of dead leaves. The longhouse, once a humid sauna of summer filth, has transformed into something worse. A giant wooden freezer full of frozen breath, damp blankets, and people pretending they're not shivering. You slept in all your clothes. You wrapped yourself in every piece of hide you own, including the one with that weird hairless patch you try not to think about. Didn't matter. You're still cold. So cold, your knees ache. Your joints feel like they've been filled with sand and then frozen in place. You try to stretch, but your spine makes a noise like a tree cracking in the wind. There's no insulation in the longhouse, just bark, slats, a few strategically placed piles of pine needles stuffed in the cracks for warmth. You can see your breath. You can hear someone sneezing across the room and pray to the forest spirits that they're not sick, even though they are. Everyone's always sick this time of year. You sit up. The blanket falls off, and immediately you regret being alive. The air bites your skin. You pull it back up and contemplate just staying buried until spring. You don't, because someone's already stoking the fire and the smell of half-burnt wood tells you it's time to start pretending today will be better. Spoiler, it won't. You crawl out of bed. The floor is damp. You step in something squishy. It might be mud, might be mold, might be deer bladder stew from last night. Doesn't matter. It's now on your only pair of socks, which were already wet. You shuffle to the fire. The smoke burns your eyes, but at least it's warm. You hold your hands out, but they're so numb it takes a minute before you even feel the heat. Someone hands you a bowl. Breakfast. Cold corn mush. Again. You eat it. Your teeth ache from the cold. You chew slowly, painfully, and try to pretend it's warm. It's not. Your lips are cracked. Your nose is running. You wipe it with your sleeve, which is also your napkin, your hand towel, and your winter fashion statement. Now comes the part of the morning where you freshen up, which means you splash your face with water from a wooden bucket and try not to scream when it hits your skin. It's ice cold. It's colder than cold. It's, I regret existing, cold. You wash your face, kind of. Rub your eyes. Blow your nose into the corner of your sleeve again. That's it. You're done. Hygiene accomplished. No one's brushing their teeth. No one's scrubbing their feet. Everyone just smells like smoke, sweat, and last month. You put on your outer wrap, an extra deer hide tied with cord around your shoulders, and you head outside. The ground crunches under your feet. Frost covers the grass. A few stubborn leaves cling to the trees, but most have fallen and turned into a brown, slippery mess that collects in corners and rots slowly. It smells like earth and decay. You breathe in and it hurts. The air slices your lungs like pine needles. Winter is coming, and it's bringing its friends: dry skin, cracked lips, frozen toes, and the kind of bone-deep chill that makes you want to weep silently in a pile of dirty furs. You've got chores today. First up, hauling wood. Because fires don't feed themselves. You walk to the woodpile with a basket on your back and numb fingers wrapped in strips of cloth. You gather what you can. Half the pile is wet. The other half is moldy. Some logs have bugs in them. You take them anyway. Bugs are a bonus. Extra protein. You drag the load back to the longhouse. You trip once. Land in the mud. Your sleeve is soaked. You don't have a backup sleeve. That's just your sleeve now. You stack the wood. Feed the fire. Try not to get smoke in your eyes, even though you always do. Then it's time to help with food prep, which means digging through the root cellar. You lift the cover and descend into the hole. It smells like cold dirt and regret. You pull up a basket of turnips. They're soft. Some are growing things. You brush them off and hand them to your cousin, who shrugs and starts chopping. Lunch will be turnip stew. Again. No spices. No salt. Just boiled root vegetables and prayer. You peel a turnip with a flint knife that's gone dull. Your fingers are stiff. The juice burns the cracks in your skin. You tell yourself this is fine. You're tough. You can handle this, until you accidentally slice your finger. It bleeds. A lot. You stick it in your mouth. It tastes like metal and dirt. There's no bandage. You wrap it with a bit of hide scrap and hope you don't get gangrene. You won't, probably. And now it's time to fetch more water. Yes, again. This time the stream has ice around the edges. You break it with a stick. The water is so cold it makes your hands cramp instantly. You fill the pot and spill half of it on your foot. It soaks through your moccasin, and now you've got wet foot skin inside freezing deer leather. You start walking back. Your toes are numb. Your heel blisters. You keep going. You wouldn't last a day. You reach the longhouse just as someone dumps a pot of yesterday's dishwater out the front entrance. You step in it. It's warm. That's worse somehow. You sit by the fire and hold your foot over it, hoping it dries. It doesn't. It just steams gently while you eat your boiled turnip and listen to someone cough in the corner. They've been coughing for days. Nobody talks about it. Nobody has medicine. They just sip broth and wrap up tighter in furs and hope they make it through the cold moons. You chew your dinner slowly, hoping this turnip is less sour than the last one. It's not. You eat it anyway. Afterward, you scrape the bowl with a twig, rinse it with cold water, and hang it up. You rub your hands together, scratch behind your ear, and feel something move. You pretend it didn't. Again. The fire burns low. The longhouse dims. You crawl back to your bedding. It's cold, still damp. You curl up into yourself, pull the hide over your head, and breathe slowly into the fur lining until it stops smelling like mold and starts smelling like you. Someone is snoring. Someone else is wheezing. A baby cries, then stops, and you lie there, staring into the darkness, feeling every scratch, every chill, every itch, every ache. You think about how you'll have to wake up and do all of this again tomorrow. No soap, no bath, no toothpaste, just more wood hauling, toe freezing, stew boiling survival. Welcome to Hygiene, Mid-Atlantic style, and this is just winter. So now, it's the cold moon, deep into winter. Everything creaks. The trees, your knees, your spine when you try to sit down on a log that someone used as a bathroom last week. You haven't bathed in. You don't even know. Time isn't measured by calendars here. It's measured by how many times you've had to rewrap the same itchy footsore with the same piece of scrap hide, and how long it's been since the last snowstorm forced the smoke hole shut. But today, something is different. Today is a ceremony day, which means it's time to freshen up, sort of. You're not alone in this. Everyone in the village is getting ready. But getting ready here doesn't mean silk robes and candles. It means scraping the worst of the filth off with sticks, smudging your pits with charcoal and juniper, and hoping the smoke from the sacred fire masks whatever your armpits have been fermenting since last harvest. You walk to the creek with your cousin. She's got a small pouch of ground-up sweetgrass and sassafras bark. You've got a strip of linen someone bartered for 2 years ago that now functions as your ceremonial loofah. It smells like whatever it was wrapped around last, which was probably dried meat. You strip down by the edge of the water, trying not to shiver, or maybe trying not to cry. The ice around the edge of the stream is thick enough to stand on. You don't, because it'll break. And if it does, you'll die. Or at least feel like you did. You cup the water in your hands and splash it on your body in bursts. It's so cold you lose feeling in your skin before you finish washing your legs. You rub sweetgrass paste on your chest and under your arms. It smells nice. For about 6 seconds. Then it mixes with whatever's living in your hide leggings, and now you smell like earthy mint and warm fungus. You rinse quickly. You dry off by flapping your arms like a bird having an emotional crisis. Then you wrap yourself in cleanish clothes and shuffle back to the longhouse with ice crystals in your eyebrows. Ceremonial cleansing. Complete. Now comes the social part. You gather in the center of the village with the others. The fire has been rebuilt. Big, hot, sacred. Someone's tossing cedar on it. The air smells amazing, briefly. Smoke curls through your hair and settles in your clothes. Which is great, because it'll hide the smell of your feet for at least an hour. The elder blesses the food, says the words, gives thanks. People nod, people smile. You try not to cough. Your cousin definitely does. Into your shoulder. You accept this. You sit with your back to a cold log, and a bowl is passed to you. Inside, stew again. But this one has meat. Real meat. Big chunks of it. You don't ask what animal it came from. You just eat it like it's sacred. Because right now, it is. You take another bite and feel a piece of sinew stick to the back of your molar. You try to pick it out with a twig and accidentally jab your gum. Blood mixes with broth. You rinse your mouth with the broth. Hygiene. Someone leans in to talk to you. They are a potential romantic partner. You can tell because they made eye contact and didn't spit near your feet. You smile, which is a bold move considering you haven't cleaned your teeth in 4 days. Your breath smells like meat and anxiety. Their breath smells like roasted onions and fermented corn. You both accept each other's aromas as a fact of life. This is the pre-Columbian version of flirting. Eye contact, close sitting, and a mutual agreement to pretend you don't smell like a damp squirrel. They say something about the sky. You nod. You both laugh. Your scalp itches. So does theirs. You scratch in rhythm. It's almost romantic. The ceremony ends after sunset. You walk back to your sleeping mat, your belly full, your body slightly cleaner, your soul briefly lifted. You lie down, wrap up, and fall asleep with your cousin's feet in your ribs and your breath fogging the air above you. That's the cleanest you'll be this season. Now, let's talk about communal grooming. Yes, it's a thing. No, it's not glamorous. Sometime later in the season, someone in the family announces, "We've got lice again." This is not a shock. You always have lice. It's more of a public service announcement. Out come the combs. Not fine-toothed plastic ones. There's no plastic. These are bone, hand-carved, not particularly effective, but better than fingernails, which is the backup. You sit in a circle. One person combs while the other holds a bowl for the bugs. You scratch, they pick. They scratch, you pick. It's community bonding with a side of mutual suffering. Sometimes the lice are so thick they squirm when you part the hair. Other times, it's just a few ambitious ones holding the line near your temples. You learn to tell the difference. You even start naming them. When the bowl is full, someone dumps it into the fire. There's a pop. Everyone cheers softly. It's weirdly satisfying. This is your spa day. No lotions, no soothing music. Just nitpicking, smoke, and someone's elbow in your back while they get a tangle out. You braid your hair afterward because loose hair means more surface area for bugs, and because a tight braid makes you feel slightly more in control of your chaos. You tie the end with a bit of sinew and rub a dab of bear fat over it to keep it from frizzing. It works, until you lean against the smoke hole wall and it smells like bacon for the next 2 days. You go to sleep that night feeling lighter. Not clean, but cleaner, which is the best you can hope for. And this is your routine, one day at a time, one stew at a time, one not lice-free day at a time. You wouldn't last a week. You're working outside, maybe chopping firewood, maybe hauling a basket of rocks, maybe helping someone build a new food cache. And the flint blade you're using slips. It scrapes across your palm, fast, sharp, clean, at first. Then the sting hits. Then the blood. You drop the tool. You hold your hand to your chest. Someone sees you and walks over casually. No one panics. This kind of thing happens all the time. You're not dying. Yet. They look at the wound. They nod. They say, "Ah." That's it. Just "ah." And then they spit on it. Yes, spit. Welcome to 15th century medical protocol. Saliva is mildly antiseptic in theory. In practice, it's spit from a mouth that hasn't seen a toothbrush since birth. Then they pack your wound with crushed leaves and charcoal. It stings. It smells like burned dandelion. They wrap it with a strip of deer tendon and tell you to keep it dry. You nod, even though you know that's impossible. The next day, your hand smells wrong. Not terrible, not gangrenous, just wrong. Warm, sweet, and a little like wet bread. You poke the wound. It oozes. You say nothing. You keep working. You don't get a day off just because you're leaking. You rewrap it with a new strip of hide. You apply more crushed leaves. The leaves are cold. You pretend that means they're working. You develop a limp because now you're also favoring your other hand, and you tripped yesterday over a pile of antlers. This is just how bodies are. They hurt, they break, they swell, they fester, they mostly recover, or they don't. There's a guy in your village who lost 2 fingers last year to a swollen cut on his leg. No one talks about it. He just uses his elbow more now. You sleep with your hand outside the blanket because it's damp. You don't want to soak the furs. You wake up in the night because it's itching. That's probably a good sign. Or a terrible one. You scratch it anyway. You suck on it to stop the itch. Now it's bleeding again. You give up and roll over. Welcome to Medicine, Mid-Atlantic Edition. No penicillin, no Band-Aids, no doctor, just plant juice, spit, and hope. Now let's talk about skin hygiene. Because it's not like you can avoid cuts, scrapes, bug bites, or weird rashes forever. You've got all of those right now. Let's start with bug bites. They're not just itchy, they're constant. Your legs are basically a map of every mosquito that's ever lived. You scratch until you bleed. Then you scab. Then you scratch the scab. You rub mud on the worst ones. It cools the skin, draws the heat out. But it also introduces new bacteria, which means now your bug bite is evolving. There's a spot on your thigh that hasn't stopped oozing since the solstice. You show it to your uncle. He squints at it and says, "It needs smoke." So you sit near the fire and waft smoke onto your leg. It smells like pine and despair. You pretend it helps. You develop a rash across your lower back. It's red. It's bumpy. It's possibly alive. You stop asking questions. You just start applying crushed yarrow and cedar resin, because that's what the healer used on the last guy who got the back rash. You lie on your stomach for hours so the air can get to it. Meanwhile, your cousin has athlete's foot, except you don't call it that. You just call it that thing where your toes peel off. He soaks his foot in cold water mixed with ash, then wraps it in moss, then cries a little. You respect that. One time someone tried using hot sand to clean their feet. It worked, until the sand got under their toenail and they lost the whole toe. You don't try the sand. Now let's talk about communal water. There's a bucket in the longhouse. It holds water from the stream. It's supposed to be clean. It's not. People dip their cups into it, sometimes their hands. Once, someone dipped a ladle in after sneezing directly into it. You saw it. You said nothing. You still drank from it later. Because there's nothing else. You once tried boiling your drinking water every day. You ran out of firewood by day 2. So now you just let your stomach fight it out. Some days you win. Some days the water does. And when it does, it's not pretty. You lie in the dirt, clutching your belly, sweating from every pore. There's no toilet. There's just behind the longhouse and a vague sense of dignity. You crawl to the edge of the woods and let your digestive system destroy itself in peace. Later, someone brings you a bowl of hot broth with some mysterious root floating in it. They call it medicine. It tastes like bitter dirt. You drink it anyway. You lie back down on your sleeping mat, now soaked in sweat and regret. The next day, you're alive. Barely. You're 18. You feel 60. You scratch your leg, Sip some water and try to forget yesterday. That's hygiene here. A little spit, a lot of firewood, and a stomach made of iron and denial. So it starts one morning when you bite into a piece of dried corn and feel something shift. Not the corn, your tooth. You freeze. You touch your jaw. You move it side to side. Something feels wrong, loose, achy. There's a dull pulse in your gums like your mouth is trying to whisper, "You've made mistakes." You ignore it because you have to. You go about your day chewing slowly, carefully, like someone trying not to wake a bear. Every bite is a gamble. Every swallow is a tiny miracle. The pain stays. Sometimes it flares up when you breathe through your mouth. Sometimes it flares when you smile, so you stop smiling. Welcome to dental hygiene. Now let's rewind a little. You've never seen a toothbrush. You've never heard of a dentist. You clean your teeth, if you're lucky, by chewing on sticks, special sticks, from special trees. The ends are frayed into little bristles, and you rub them along your gums in a way that feels productive, but probably isn't. The stick gets rid of food, sometimes. It also leaves behind wood pulp, bark bits, and occasionally a splinter jammed between your molars. Still better than nothing. Once, someone in your family rubbed their teeth with ash, said it made them white. It did, briefly, until they chipped one on a piece of grit stuck in a boiled acorn. Some people chew spruce gum. It's sticky, tastes like sadness, and occasionally helps pull plaque off, or a loose filling. Not that you have fillings. You're not fancy. Let's talk about what your teeth actually look like. They're yellow, some are brown. One has a dark streak through it that no one wants to talk about. You're missing 2 in the back. One fell out after you bit into a cold bone last winter. The other just gave up sometime around your 12th birthday. You swallowed it. It's probably still in a rabbit burrow somewhere, confused and alone. Your gums bleed when you chew anything tough, which is every meal. Sometimes they swell. You press on them with your fingers, feel the pressure, and pretend it's fine. Until one day, it's not. The pain moves. It spreads to your ear, then your temple. You can't chew on that side anymore. You wince when you talk. You hold your jaw like it's broken. It's not. Yet. But something inside your gum is definitely growing. An abscess, you hear someone say. You don't know the word, but you know the look that comes with it. Someone suggests you pull the tooth. You laugh. Then they show you how. It involves a piece of sinew, a loop around the tooth, and a sharp, confident yank. You think about it for 3 days. The swelling gets worse. You can't sleep. You can't eat. You give in. They sit you near the fire. They offer you a stick to bite. You don't ask what kind of stick. You bite, you nod, and then pull. It's not clean. It's not fast. It's not successful the first time. But eventually, after some blood, some screaming, and a lot of holding onto the floor mat for dear life, the tooth is out. You spit blood into the fire. It hisses. Everyone claps quietly. You lie down. The next day, your face is purple, but the pain is less. You win. Kind of. And now you have a new hole in your mouth for soup to pour into. Congratulations. Let's talk about bad breath now, because you've got it. Everyone's got it. It's not a personal failing. It's a fact of life. You haven't brushed in 3 weeks. You've been eating stew made of questionable roots, chewing meat cured in sun-warmed animal fat, and drinking water that occasionally tastes like frog. Your mouth smells like something crawled in and died. But here's the thing, so does everyone else's. You talk to someone face to face and neither of you flinches, because that would be rude, and also because you've gone nose blind to it. Romance still exists here, but it has nothing to do with breath mints. You fall in love with someone's laugh, not the smell of their mouth. And when you kiss, it's not about perfume or fresh breath. It's about shared suffering, a mutual agreement to ignore the reek of pickled fish and tooth rot. Some people chew mint leaves. Not often. They're not easy to find. But when someone does, everyone notices. You once kissed someone who had just chewed mint. It was magical. They moved away a month later. You're still bitter, but your breath is worse. And your dental future? Let's just say you're 20 and your teeth are already considering retirement. You wake up needing to go. Not in the, I'll wait until a convenient time kind of way. In the, get up now or deal with consequences kind of way. Your stomach makes a noise that sounds like a distressed elk. You throw off your hide blanket, shuffle to the longhouse door, trip over a sleeping dog, and step outside. It's still dark, still cold, still deeply unfair. You walk past the fire pit, past the food cache, past a cousin who's already stirring a pot of something that smells like regret and boiled grass. You keep walking. You walk until you're past the edge of the village, past the communal path, into the woods. You find a spot near a half-fallen log. You look around. There's no one there. That's your bathroom. Congratulations. You squat. The leaves are damp. The air is sharp. A squirrel screams at you from a branch overhead like it's personally offended. You do what you came to do. There's no toilet paper. Obviously, there's moss, if you're lucky. Dry leaves if you're desperate. A handful of snow if you want to scream. You reach for a piece of moss. It's cold, it's damp. It doesn't do much. You wipe, sort of. You don't check how well it worked. You don't want to know. You bury what you can. Not because it's law, but because stepping in someone else's mess is a bad way to start your day. You toss a few leaves on top. You tell yourself the earth will take care of it. You walk back, slightly damp, slightly itchy, and pretending you don't smell anything. This is the normal routine. There's no outhouse, no composting toilet, no hand-washing station with cucumber-scented soap, just a corner of the woods and a fading sense of dignity. Now let's talk about pooping in winter. Because it's worse. Everything you just did, but colder. You squat and immediately regret your life choices. Your feet sink into snow. Your backside freezes to the wind. You move fast. The moss, frozen. The leaves, brittle. You use what you can and hobble back with a new understanding of the phrase, biting cold. You try not to talk about it. Everyone's doing it. Everyone knows. But it's the kind of shared misery that no one jokes about, except your uncle. He makes a joke about frosty cheeks every winter. You hate it. You love it. You laugh anyway. Now, about urination. It's easier, less dramatic, slightly. Still outdoors. Still exposed. Still surrounded by bugs in summer and ice in winter. You step behind a tree. You go. That's it. Unless the wind changes. Then it's not great. Back at the longhouse, people track stuff in. On their shoes. On their cloaks. On their skin. No one's washing their hands. No one has sanitizer. You might rinse with stream water if you're feeling fancy, but most people just wipe their palms on their leggings and move on with their day. That hand just helped stir the stew. That hand just passed you a piece of jerky. You eat it anyway. Because at this point, your immune system is less a system and more a feral animal with a grudge and a spear. Let's talk about smell. It's everywhere. The longhouse smells like smoke, bodies, dog fur, wet feet, old meat, and secrets. You've gotten used to it. You notice it most when you leave and come back in. That wave of damp air and old sweat hits you in the face like a deer pelt. Then it fades. Then it's normal again. Everyone smells. No one cares. You hug people anyway. You sit close by the fire anyway. You pass bowls of stew and breath and stories and don't flinch. Because smell is just part of being alive here. A signal that you exist. A constant, pungent reminder that you are surviving the unthinkable. Now and then, someone smells worse than usual. It might mean they're sick. It might mean they haven't had access to clean water for days. It might mean a wound is going bad. But most of the time, it just means life is still happening. Loud, messy, unwashed. You wouldn't last a morning. It's spring now, which sounds like a relief, until you remember that spring here doesn't mean flowers and butterflies. It means mud, relentless, personal, inside your socks mud. It means wet mats, damp blankets, and the return of biting flies that somehow lived through the winter under your bedding. But it also means the occasional chance to bathe. In quotes, big quotes. You haven't had a proper bath in possibly ever. But today, it's warm enough. The snow is gone. The stream is flowing again. The water is still too cold to be legal, but you've stopped caring. You grab a flat stone, a handful of fir needles, and some charcoal. This is your soap kit. It's not great, but it's all you've got. You strip by the water's edge. Slowly, your clothes are damp with sweat and time. Your leggings smell like wood smoke and expired milk. You drop them in a pile that immediately attracts 3 curious beetles. You step into the water. It's cold. You yelp. You press on. You splash water on yourself until your skin is red and stinging. Then you rub the charcoal under your arms. You tell yourself it draws out toxins. You have no idea what that means. No one does. It just sounds good. Then you grab a clump of fir needles, crush them in your hands, and rub them against your chest and neck. It scratches like you're being gently exfoliated by a pine-scented bear. But at least you smell better. You dunk your head under. You come up coughing. You forgot again to close your mouth. Now your sinuses are filled with glacier water and shame. You scrub your scalp with ash. It turns into a gritty paste. You rinse it out. Some of it stays. You accept this. You don't dry off with a towel. There is no towel. You flap your arms like a wet owl and walk back to the longhouse barefoot, trailing droplets and dignity. You put your leggings back on. They're still warm. That's not a compliment. By the time you return to the fire, you're shivering, but you feel lighter, not cleaner, just slightly less awful. This is your best case scenario. On every other day, you just fake it. You rub ashes under your arms. You pat your skin with a dry cloth that hasn't been washed since the last lunar cycle. You chew on mint if you can find it. You burn sweetgrass and waft the smoke over yourself like a blessing. It doesn't help, but it gives you hope. Now let's talk about deodorant. You don't have any. You know this already, but you try. You rub crushed cedar leaves under your arms. You mash wintergreen into a paste and smear it on your neck. You try rubbing salt crystals on your pits once. It burns. You cry. You do it again the next week because someone said it worked. Nothing really works. You sweat anyway. You stink anyway. You just try to stink nice. A little herbal. A little smoky. A little, maybe I only smell like this because I'm strong and mysterious. People compliment you when you don't smell like rotting fish. You take it as a win. Now, babies. They're adorable, software curious, filled with a deep and violent need to expel bodily fluids on everything you love. You're holding one right now. He's cooing. He's happy. Then he sneezes into your mouth and explodes diarrhea onto your lap. It happens so fast you don't even have time to scream. You stand up. You assess the damage. Your leggings are ruined. Your shirt is damp. Your pride is gone. You wipe off what you can with a handful of moss and a look of absolute betrayal. You walk to the stream and rinse your thighs like someone cleaning a crime scene. You sit on a rock for 20 minutes, hoping the sun will dry the shame out of your clothes. It doesn't. The baby is fine. He's chewing on a stick and smiling. You're cold, wet, and 10 years older than you were this morning. That's child care hygiene in the mid-Atlantic. Just constant disaster. Wipe, rinse, repeat. You do it again tomorrow. Sometimes you try to diaper with bark or folded hides. They leak. You try moss. It leaks. You stop trying and just accept that babies are portable fountains of chaos. You bathe them in stream water, rub them with soft grass, and try not to cry when they spit half-chewed berries into your freshly washed hair. They grow up fast, which is lucky, because you can only take so many bodily fluids per day. Now let's talk about seasonal changes, because every season changes how you deal with hygiene. In spring, it's mud. Everything is wet. Everything smells. You give up. In summer, it's heat. You sweat nonstop. You itch nonstop. You rub green leaves on your body and hope they're not poison ivy. In autumn, it's smoke. You huddle near fires to keep bugs off. Your clothes get smoky. Your hair gets crispy. You smell like a burning tree, and people call it pleasant. In winter, it's cold. You stop washing. You stop moving. You try to survive until the snow melts and you can pretend to be clean again. There's no ideal season. There's just different kinds of gross. And through it all, you carry on. Because you have to. You wouldn't last a season. You wake up with your hair stuck to your face, not just a strand or two, a full section of it plastered across your cheek like seaweed on a rock. You try to peel it off and it pulls. Hard. You realize it's not just stuck. It's bonded. Probably with smoke grease. Possibly with sap. Maybe with... You know what? Let's not think about that. You sit up. Your scalp itches. This is how most days start now. Let's talk about hair hygiene. First of all, you've never cut your hair. Or if you did, it was once, with a dull flint knife, and you've been emotionally recovering ever since. Your hair is long, tangled, and stiff. Not stiff like hair gel. Stiff like dried grass dipped in bear fat and left under a smoke hole for a week. Washing it is a seasonal event. If it's warm, you might splash some creek water over your head. Maybe rub some ash or crushed plants through it. Rinse. Hope for the best. If it's cold, forget it. You scrape the worst of the grease off with a bone comb and pretend you're cleaner now. You don't have shampoo. You don't have conditioner. You have sap, you have smoke, and you have something that might be mold growing near your part. You braid your hair most days, because if you don't, it eats your face in your sleep. Braids are practical. They keep your hair out of the fire, out of your stew, out of your eyes when you're running from a wasp with an agenda. But they're also glue traps for dirt. You once undid a braid that hadn't been touched in a month and found a beetle inside. You let it go. You wished it well. You rebraided and moved on. Now let's talk about lice. Yes, you have them. Everyone does. They're like neighbors. Unwelcome but constant. They don't really bite. They just exist. In your scalp. In your cousin's scalp. In the scalp of the person sitting next to you right now, who's probably sharing their lice with you as we speak. You try to manage it. There's a communal grooming day once a week, or when the itching becomes too aggressive to ignore. You sit in a circle. You pull your hair apart. Someone checks. Someone picks. You do the same for them. There are combs made of carved bone or wood. They're not delicate. They scrape. They yank. You wince. If you're lucky, you get someone with gentle hands. If not, you get your aunt, who combs like she's trying to tame a wild animal with one arm and a grudge. Sometimes you rub crushed herbs into your scalp. Yarrow, sage, mint, if you can find it. It helps a little. Smells nice. Feels cool. Sometimes it just makes the lice high. Afterward, you burn the lice in the fire. You watch them pop. It's disturbingly satisfying. You rebraid your hair with better herbs tucked in for scent. You tie the ends with sinew or woven bark fiber. You go back to your day, knowing you'll have to do it all again next week. Now, feet. Let's not pretend this is going to be pleasant. Your feet are the most overworked, underloved part of your body. They are cracked, calloused, permanently tinted a shade of gray-brown that no amount of scrubbing will fix. You wear soft-soled moccasins made from deer hide. They are functional, but they are also sponges for moisture, filth, and bacteria. You rarely take them off, because if you do, you'll have to face what's underneath, and what's underneath is toe fungus. Yes, again, you don't talk about it, but you know. Your nails are thick, yellowish. One of them curls slightly at the edge like it's trying to escape. You tried to trim it once with a sharpened stone. You failed. You still have the scar. There's peeling skin between your toes. It itches. You scratch it against a log when no one's looking. You try airing them out by the fire. It doesn't help. Someone nearby coughs and shifts slightly away. You once rubbed pine resin between your toes. It worked for a few days. Then you couldn't get your moccasins off. You spent an entire evening trying to pry your foot free while pretending it was totally normal. It's not just you. Your cousin's feet smell like swamp cabbage. Your uncle's toenail fell off during the last harvest. He just shrugged. Your grandmother washes her feet in cold water every morning like it's a religion. Her feet are the cleanest in the village. They're also the scariest. Calloused like volcanic rock and sharp enough to slice a gourd in half. You try to care. You rub crushed mint leaves between your toes. You dry your socks by the fire. You whisper promises to your heels. But you know, your feet are a lost cause. They've seen too much. They've stepped in too many things. They are the veterans of your body, battle-hardened, a little disgusting, and constantly falling apart. You wouldn't last a week barefoot here, and yet, here you are, still walking, still sweating, still scratching your scalp under the full moon and pretending it's just part of the plan. You're sitting by the fire when you realize something feels off in your left ear. It's muffled, like someone stuffed pine needles in it. You dig in gently with a finger and feel something sticky. You dig again. It's warm. You wipe it on your leggings and pretend it's not earwax. It's earwax. Let's talk about that. You don't have Q-tips. You don't have washcloths. You have fingers. You have the corners of sticks. You have the occasional bird feather if you're fancy. You try not to go in too deep. Someone once did, and now they tilt when they walk. So you swipe the edge, scoop what you can, and wipe it on a rock. Everyone does it. No one talks about it. The rock near the smoke hole has seen things. You do your best to keep your ears clear. Not because you're worried about cleanliness, but because the buildup starts to affect your hearing. You once missed the start of a ceremony because you didn't hear the drum. You blamed it on the wind. Now, eyes. They are also a mess. You live in smoke. Smoke from the longhouse fires, smoke from the cooking pit, smoke from the cedar bundles burned to keep away bugs. It's everywhere, constant, comforting, until your eyes start watering. You rub them, constantly. You wipe away tears and ash with the back of your hand, which has not been cleaned since the last solstice. Now your eye itches, now it burns. You get a crust in the corner that hardens by mid-morning. You try blinking it away. You try scraping it with your nail. One time, someone tried washing their eye with cold stream water. It worked. Once. Another time, they got an infection. They walked around squinting for a week before their eye just stopped trying. You can't afford that. You need both eyes to spot danger, weave baskets, dodge flying bits of burning bark when the fire crackles at the wrong moment. So you rinse when you can. You don't rub too much. You let the smoke sting until it doesn't. That's how you know you've adapted. Your eyes cry less now, but only because they've given up. Let's talk noses. Yours is full. Constantly. Sometimes with snot. Sometimes with ash. Sometimes with bits of bark or grass that just blow in during a strong wind. You blow your nose with your hands. Yes, your hands. You block one nostril, press the other against the open air, and exhale violently. The snot lands wherever it lands. Hopefully not on someone else's leggings, but no promises. You wipe your hands on your cloak. You pretend that's the end of it. And now, the mouth. Again. Because it's not just your teeth. It's your tongue, your cheeks, your lips. Your lips are dry, cracked, bleeding. You rub animal fat on them. It works, kind of. But then you eat, then you drink. Then you wipe your mouth with the back of your hand and you're back to square one. Sometimes you chew spruce gum to clean your mouth. Sometimes you just chew twigs. Once, your cousin chewed a plant that made her tongue go numb for a day. She said it helped her stop complaining. You considered it. Now, for something a little stranger, animal-assisted hygiene. Yes, really. There's a dog in the longhouse. He's been here for years. He's not technically anyone's, but he's fed and warm, so he stays. He sleeps by your feet, sometimes on your feet. Sometimes he licks them. You pretend this is helpful. Cleans the skin, someone once said. Gets rid of old scabs, someone else added. You nodded like that made sense. The dog licks. You twitch. He licks again. You stop noticing. This is your foot spa now. And then there's raccoons. Wild ones. Your weird cousin says they'll clean you if you stay very still. You tried it once. You got bit. You never tried again. But your cousin swears by it, says raccoons have cleansing energy. Your aunt calls it nonsense. Your uncle calls it Tuesday. No one agrees, but everyone listens. There's one story about a guy who let squirrels nibble the dead skin off his elbows. You never met him. You hope he's okay. Now, the smell behind the smoke hole. It's not a real place. It's a phrase, a warning. It refers to the quiet, sour, thick scent that builds up behind the sleeping mats at the back of the longhouse, where the air doesn't move, where people stuff their damp clothes, leftover hides, half-chewed roots, forgotten tools, and lost hopes. It's not dangerous, but it's present. You sleep near it sometimes. You wake up with it in your hair. You stop noticing. Everyone does, until someone lifts a blanket and the whole area smells like wet mushrooms and bad decisions. You say nothing. You just move your mat and lie very still, waiting for your nose to shut down again. That's hygiene here. A dog licking your heel, a smoke hole with moods, a rock covered in communal earwax. You wouldn't last a night. You wake up feeling off, not sick, not tired, just wrong. There's a weight in your belly, a tightness in your lower back. You know what's coming. You try to ignore it. Then you feel it. Warm. Sudden. You close your eyes. It started. And no, you don't have tampons. You don't have pads. You have moss. Soft moss, if you're lucky. Dried and bundled. Tucked into a strip of bark cloth or hide and held in place with a braided tie around your hips. If you're not lucky, you have crumpled leaves and a complicated sense of urgency. There's no drawer full of options. There's no heating pad. There's no chocolate. There's just you, your body, and a rapidly dampening piece of forest debris. You don't panic. You've done this before. You stand up slowly. You step outside. You make your way to the edge of the woods where the privacy is better. You squat. You breathe. You let gravity do its job. You remove the old moss. You bury it. You insert a new clump, gently, carefully, praying it was dried flat and not balled up with beetle larvae still inside. It's happened. You adjust your waistband. You walk back to the longhouse and try to act normal. But normal's hard when your lower back feels like it's trying to collapse into itself, and every other breath feels like your body's trying to fold you in half. So you sit by the fire with a hot rock wrapped in hide pressed against your belly. It helps. A little. Someone offers you boiled bark tea. You drink it even though it tastes like bitter regret. It dulls the cramps. Or maybe it distracts you from them. Either way, you accept it. Now let's talk community expectations. No one's going to shame you for bleeding. But they might ask you to sleep near the edge of the longhouse for a few nights. It's not exile. It's space, so your scent doesn't confuse the hunters. So the dogs don't act weird. So your dreams don't curl around the fire in ways that make the elders squint. You get a little more quiet. You get a little more room. You wrap yourself tighter. You pull your blanket higher. You bleed in silence while your cousin snores 3 feet away with a mouth full of cedar bark. The moss shifts. You adjust it. You pretend you're sleeping. Now let's talk leaks. Because yes, they happen. Your leggings are stained. You wash them in the stream. You use soap root or crushed lye ash. You rub them against a smooth stone until your knuckles go raw. You hold them up. There's still a faint mark. You shrug. You wear them anyway. Because everyone knows. Everyone's seen it. Your aunts. Your friends. The woman 3 houses down who bleeds for 6 days like she's trying to win a contest. It's not taboo. It's just annoying, messy, inconvenient, and constant. It happens every moon cycle. Which means once you start tracking the stars and the shadows and the moonrise, you're also tracking your own body's countdown to discomfort. Sometimes you're early. Sometimes you're late. Sometimes you bleed right through your deer hide leggings during a feast and sit in it like it's fine. Because it has to be. Because it is. Now and then, you get herbal help. Your mother gives you something bitter and black in a bark cup. You sip it. Your stomach gurgles. You sweat. Your cramps fade. You once took too much and didn't stand up straight for 2 hours. You learned your lesson. You've heard of stronger herbs. Plants used when the bleeding won't stop. Plants used to stop it forever. But those are whispered about. Given in private. Tied to stories no one finishes. You don't ask. You don't need to know yet. Sometimes the pain is too much. You lie curled on your side, cheek against the fur, knees pulled in, trying to breathe through the knife twisting through your belly. Someone brings you warm broth. No one mocks you. You ride it out. You sleep. You leak onto the mat and feel terrible. Then you clean it. Then you do it again the next night. This is your life. This is your hygiene, not sterile, not cute, not Pinterest ready. Just a cycle of pain, moss, and quiet resilience. And eventually, it stops. When you're older, when your body decides it's done. And when that day comes, you'll wrap sage around your waist and sit by the fire a little straighter, knowing you've survived 1,000 tiny deaths and are still standing. You wouldn't last one cycle. You're pregnant. Again. You knew before your stomach even changed. Your body told you in whispers, fatigue, nausea, an ache that starts in your spine and spreads like a warm warning. Your sense of smell gets weird. One morning, someone boils fish and you have to leave the longhouse before you throw up in the fire. You miss your moss pads. You miss being left alone. Now, everyone wants to feed you roots and stroke your hair and ask you very gently if you're feeling the little fish swim yet. You are. The baby kicks like it's already chasing squirrels. You're 4 moons in. You stop helping haul water. You're 5 moons in. You stop grinding corn. You're 6 moons in. You wake up twice a night to pee. You do it in the woods, hunched over like a suspicious raccoon, grunting softly because your knees no longer belong to you. By the time your belly gets so big it touches your thighs when you squat, you've stopped pretending you're okay. You sit by the fire, you eat, you sleep, you sweat. And the smell? It's happening. Not bad, not awful, just new. Your body is shifting, changing, working overtime. And no, you don't have deodorant. You wipe your chest with willow leaves. You bathe when the weather allows. You cry when it doesn't. You're not glowing. You're glowing in the same way a torch glows before it collapses into ash. And then the day comes. You feel it before dawn. The weight drops. Your back screams. Your stomach tightens like a fist. You say nothing for an hour, maybe 2. Then the first real pain hits, and you grunt so loud the dogs wake up. It begins. Someone brings warm water. Someone else boils a bundle of herbs you've never questioned, but deeply hope are safe. Your aunt takes your hand. Your cousin wipes your brow. There's no hospital, no sterile room, no epidural, no nurse with a clipboard. Just a dirt floor, a birthing mat, steam, firelight, and your own body demanding a sacrifice. You push, you cry, you scream. You try not to curse out the spirit world. You fail. It's long, it's bloody, it's loud. At one point, you think you've died. Then the baby cries, and you realize you haven't. But your old self probably did. The child is wiped down with a scrap of rabbit fur dipped in warm water. That's the first bath. It's quick, gentle, not much more than a smear and swish. You're exhausted. You're leaking. You're soaked in sweat and other things you try not to name. Someone wipes your thighs. Someone helps you up. Someone ties an herbal bundle near your bed to ward off the stink. It doesn't work, but you appreciate the effort. You bleed for days after. You change your moss pad twice as often now. You rinse in the stream. You wince every time. You can't sit right. You can't sleep on your stomach. You can't tell where your own scent ends and the baby's begins. It's overwhelming. Your chest leaks. Your belly aches. Your legs tremble when you stand. You're not clean, not even close. But you are whole, kind of. And now, you have a baby. So, let's talk about keeping it clean. You don't have wipes, you don't have soap, you don't have baby powder or diaper cream or a waterproof mattress protector. You have moss. Again. You have thin strips of hide, looped gently around tiny legs. You have spit sometimes, not out of choice, out of desperation. The baby pees on everything. You, the furs, the dog, your cousin's soup. You laugh the first time. You cry the third. By the 5th, you stop reacting. Bowel movements are a daily roulette. The smell is indescribable. The volume is biblical. You change the moss. You rinse the cloth. You bathe the baby in cold stream water while they scream like a furious potato. You hum. You talk softly. You call them strong, even when they're wailing. You pat them dry with your shirt. You warm them by the fire. They quiet. They sleep. You sleep too, if the gods allow. And the smell? Oh, it's there. Newborns aren't all sweet and innocence. They smell like milk and sweat and smoke and possibly pickled yam. You press your nose to their head and inhale deeply anyway, because it's yours. And despite everything, it's beautiful. Even when they vomit into your mouth, which they will, more than once, and you'll survive it. Because you already survived childbirth in a bark longhouse with no midwife, no plumbing, no Tylenol, and no clean anything. You are a legend. You wouldn't last a minute now. But you just kept an infant alive with moss, willpower, and boiled tea. You've had the baby. You're technically a mother now. But you're also still leaking, still swollen, and still walking like you fought a bear and lost. Welcome to the recovery period. It's not called that because no one has time for terms like postpartum. You just gave birth. Now you rest. Or at least you're supposed to rest. Your job now is to sit, to feed, to sleep, to leak. You are not allowed near the food prep, not allowed near the sacred fire, not allowed to carry water or touch anything ceremonial. It's not punishment, it's tradition, it's hygiene, sort of. The belief goes, your body's still open, which it is. You're still bleeding. You're still flushing things out. You're vulnerable, and that means you're not spiritually clean yet. So you sleep near the doorway of the longhouse. You eat from your own bowl. You use your own water. You whisper when the elders are chanting. It sounds like exile, but it's not. It's protection. For you. For everyone. You stay there for days, maybe a full moon cycle. You're allowed company. Quiet visitors, helpful aunts, other mothers who tell you stories about the first time their baby peed directly into their stew. It helps. You laugh, you cry, you stare into the fire until your mind wanders somewhere safe and soft. You're healing. And your baby? Your baby is mostly damp. They sweat, they drool, they spit up milk that somehow smells like regret and mashed nuts. So let's talk about how you keep a newborn clean. You don't bathe them every day. That would be cruel. They hate water. They scream like they've been betrayed by the earth. But once a week, when the sun is out and the stream isn't frozen, you take them down, strip them bare, and lower them in gently. You wash with one hand and swat away bugs with the other. You use a soft cloth or a piece of chewed root to wipe behind their ears. You check between their toes. You rinse their folds. You say a silent prayer that they don't poop mid-bath. They always do. You act surprised. You rinse again. Then you wrap them in fur and hold them tight until the shaking stops. Not theirs, yours. That water is cold. Now and then, you do a smoke cleanse. You burn sage or sweetgrass. You hold them in the smoke like they're being offered to the ancestors. You let the scent soak into their tiny skin. It doesn't clean them, but it makes them smell less awful. Which, honestly, is the goal most days. Let's talk about communal body odor. Yes, again, because smell matters. It tells people where you've been, what you've done, how long it's been since you last dunked yourself in a river out of sheer panic. There are unspoken rules. You don't sit near the elders if you smell like old fish. You don't sleep in the middle of the longhouse if you haven't rinsed in 3 days. You don't handle ceremonial objects if your armpits could wilt cedar. Everyone's got a threshold, a line between you're human and you're a hazard. You've crossed it before. You were told, gently. Why don't you go down to the water before the meal? Translation: you smell like you've been buried in moss and fear. You went. You came back dripping. Everyone nodded. No one mentioned it again. That's how you know you're loved. Let's talk about babies and poop again, briefly. Because you thought it was bad the first time? It gets worse. When they start eating solids, their stomach turns into a fermentation pit. Your entire life becomes a quest for clean moss. You start keeping a stash near your bed. You invent new folding techniques. You develop instincts. You can now predict a diaper blowout based on the sound of a sneeze. You start calling them mud dragons. No one laughs, but they all nod. They've been there. You don't last long in clean clothes. Most of your shirts have a stain pattern that tells a story. You've stopped trying to get the smell out. You focus on survival. You rub your baby down with damp hide and whisper softly while they gurgle like a gremlin. They smile. You smile back. You still smell like milk and smoke and something unidentifiable, but the baby is happy. That's enough. Now, getting your person smell back. It takes weeks, longer if the weather's bad. You drink bitter teas, you wash when you can, you tie fragrant herbs into your braids. One day, someone says you smell like yourself again. You almost cry, because you forgot what that meant. You start sleeping closer to the fire. You sit in council again. You laugh without flinching at the thought of your own scent. You made it. You're back. But you'll never forget. And you wouldn't last a day in this mess if you weren't already in it. You're 13, or 12, or 14. No one's counting too closely. But your body's decided. You wake up one morning soaked in your own sweat, stuck to your fur mat, and wondering why your armpits suddenly smell like something died inside your chest and clawed its way out. Congratulations, you're a teenager now. Your voice cracks when you speak. Your skin breaks out in bumps. Your feet somehow double in size overnight and now smell like sour cornmeal and injustice. The people around you are kind, mostly. They say things like, "Ah, the time has come," and "Don't worry, we were all disgusting once." But also, you should really scrub more. So let's talk about teen hygiene in a mid-Atlantic tribal society before the Europeans showed up with their diseases and soap obsessions. You sweat. A lot. You don't have deodorant, but you do have desperation. You rub every herb you can find under your arms. Yarrow, mint, crushed cedar needles, burnt bark, wild onions once, until your cousin screamed and shoved you out of the longhouse. You try everything. You soak your shirt in sweetgrass tea. You air out your leggings by waving them over smoke like they're being exercised. You once stuck a wet moss bundle under each arm and called it a day. You stank like a bog witch. But you felt hopeful. Now, let's talk about ritual cleanses. You reach a certain age, and the community says it's time. Time for the sweat lodge. Time for purification. Time to enter a hot, dark space filled with steam, chants, and no ventilation. You're terrified. Rightfully. You strip down with a group of other adolescents who are also sticky, nervous, and vibrating with the chaotic energy of too many hormones and not enough deodorant. You step into the lodge. It's hot. Immediately, you're sweating from places you didn't know had sweat glands. Your scalp is leaking. Your eyelids are sweating. You blink, and it drips. You sit cross-legged. You try to breathe. An elder pours water on hot stones. The steam hits you like a slap. You don't talk. You endure. It's not torture. It's tradition. And it works, kind of. You emerge 2 hours later, soaked, wobbly, and cleaner than you've ever been in your life. You don't stink for one whole day. Then it's back to normal. But now you know how to reset. When it gets bad, really bad, you go back. You sweat it out. You come back reborn. Ish. Now, your first crush. They sit 3 mats away. They laugh like water over stone. They don't notice you. You try everything. You wash your hands more. You scrub behind your ears. You chew roots that make your breath smell like spicy pine needles. You even comb your hair before dinner. That one time, you borrow someone's cloak and pretend it's yours. You try not to scratch your armpit when they're looking. They catch you anyway. You smile. They do not. You go outside and scream into a log. This is your life now. Hormones, sweat, desperation, and hope. Because someday, you'll grow out of this. Someday, you'll smell like a person again. For now, you just survive. You wouldn't last a moon cycle in this much body odor, but you do, every single day. You like someone, really like them. Not just the passing, they look like they bathe more often than most, kind of like. This is real. Your stomach twists when they laugh. Your palms sweat more than usual when they're near. Which is a problem, because your palms already smell like smoked squash and deer tendon. You want to impress them. You want to look good. But you live in a village made of bark, mud, smoke, and communal regret. There are no perfumes, no showers, no mirrors, just vibes. So you do what you can. You wipe your face with a cold cloth. You rub crushed mint under your arms. You chew birch twigs until your teeth feel like tiny sticks of cinnamon pain. You smile. It hurts, because smiling shows your teeth. Let's talk about those. They are not great. You don't brush them. You scrape them with sticks sometimes. You chew things that are mildly abrasive, soft charcoal, fibrous bark, the occasional bitter herb. You spit. You rinse with water if you're lucky. Your breath still smells like a root cellar after a flood, but so does everyone else's. And that's the trick. Everyone smells. Everyone has plaque. Everyone's breath is a little too earthy. So you stop worrying. A little. You still chew sweet roots before talking to your crush. You still breathe through your nose during conversations, just in case. You sit closer. You talk about the weather, the deer sightings, the dream you had where a turtle gave you advice. They laugh. Your heart skips. You try not to sweat. You do. You apologize for the smell. They shrug. They say, "You smell like smoke and cedar." You say, "So do you." And now you're in love. Sort of. You spend time together. You walk through the woods, pretending you're not stepping in tick nests. You gather berries and casually wipe your juice-stained hands on your thighs like it's romantic. You watch each other scratch mosquito bites and try to make it look cool. Eventually, the moment comes. Your faces are close. You're under the moon. You're both disgusting. You kiss anyway, and it's fine. A little gritty, a little damp. Someone's breath smells like burnt roots and sorrow. But you're happy. You touch their cheek. They touch yours. Then, you both go back to the longhouse and pretend nothing happened because public affection is still mildly illegal in your grandmother's eyes. The next day, you share food. A big deal. You hand them the better piece of meat. They give you the sweeter part of the squash. You're practically married now. You spend more time together. You bathe near each other. Not with each other, but within awkwardly polite proximity. You both scrub with damp moss and pretend not to notice. You whisper, you smile, you smell. But now it's a shared thing. Two people, equally human, equally funky, equally trying to stay clean in a world that says, "Eh, close enough." And that's what love is here. Not perfect, not scented with jasmine, but real, warm, alive. You wouldn't last a courtship cycle, but somehow you did. You're in love. You've shared food. You've shared laughs. Now you share a mat. And the reality of smelling each other full time is setting in. You sleep beside them every night. You used to find their scent comforting. Now you're wondering how one person's breath can smell like both dried berries and old meat at the same time. They snore. Their feet twitch. Their hair sticks to your cheek like a wet vine. You still love them, but you are reassessing the situation. Let's talk about shared hygiene. You bathe together sometimes now. Not romantically, functionally. You both strip down and walk to the creek like it's a chore, because it is. You stand knee-deep in freezing water, grumbling about leeches and pretending the goosebumps are spiritual. You scrub each other's backs with bark fiber. You don't make eye contact. You rinse, you shiver, you get out. Back at the longhouse, you both warm up by the fire. You share a fur. You smell slightly better. Temporarily. Now let's talk about arguments, because yes, hygiene causes them. You argue about smell. You haven't washed your leggings in 3 moons. You're one to talk, stink breath. You used my moss cloth again, didn't you? I thought it was our moss cloth. It gets tense. Sometimes it escalates. You both stomp off. You both return an hour later, smelling exactly the same. You pretend it's over. You hug. You smell each other again. You grimace. It's fine. Let's talk about hair. Their hair is long, so is yours. It gets tangled. It gets greasy. It gets caught in everything. Firewood, food, each other's mouths during cuddles. You groom each other now. You sit in the sun and pick through their scalp like an emotionally distant baboon. You remove lice. You remove leaves. You find a small twig and ask questions you don't want answers to. They do the same for you. It's oddly intimate. You feel closer and itchier. Let's talk feet. Because wow, you thought your feet were bad? Theirs are a biome. You've seen things, peeling calluses, toenails that look like river stones, one toe that appears to have developed a second rogue nail just for drama. You say nothing. You bring up foot scrubbing gently. They take the hint. You both start rubbing your soles on rough bark before bed. It becomes a ritual. It also becomes a weird form of flirtation. You wink. They grin. You both smell like damp trees. It's beautiful, in a rotundra of decay kind of way. Now let's talk shared illness. Because you will get sick. They sneeze. You say, "Bless the winds." They cough. You offer them pine tea. Then you cough. Now you're both lying on your mat with blocked sinuses, trying not to accidentally wipe your noses on each other. You fail. The sickness passes. The smell lingers. You get up one day, rinse your face in the stream, and look over to see them doing the same. You smile. Because somehow, this is working. Your hygiene habits have synced. Your rhythms have aligned. You both stink, in tandem. It's disgusting. It's domestic. You wouldn't last a week sharing moss towels with another human. But here you are, still together, still smelly, still in love. You're older now. Not old, just older. Your knees pop. Your back groans. You make a noise every time you sit down, and you don't even notice anymore. Others do. They call it the grunt of the wise. You pretend that's flattering. Let's talk about hygiene in middle age, because here's the thing. You care more now. You care because you've seen things. You've smelled the unwashed feet of 10 teenage boys during the spring festival, and you swore never again. You've been coughed on by toddlers with mysterious mucus dripping from their everything. You've raised children. You've buried spoiled hides. You've cleaned up fluids you still can't name. You're tired, but you're also efficient. You've got a system. You bathe regularly. Not every day, who has time, but often enough that people nod respectfully when you walk by. You wash your hands before meals. You scrape your teeth with a special stick that you've whittled down to the perfect shape. You rinse your mouth with mint tea. You pluck your armpit hairs when they get too wild. You even own your own washing rock. That's right. No more borrowing someone else's moss-covered boulder down at the creek. You found your own, flat, smooth, sun-warmed. You bring your own water. You bring your own soap root. You clean your feet with intention. People see you. They nod. They say, "There goes someone who doesn't smell like fermented bark stew." It's a compliment. You take it. Let's talk about sweat. Because you sweat more now, not from movement, from existing. You sit near the fire and suddenly your neck is damp. Your shirt sticks. Your thighs squeak when you stand. You wipe with cloth. You dust with crushed herbs. You mutter under your breath. Your partner says, "You've got a glow." You say, "I'm leaking." It's fine. You're used to it. Sometimes your armpits rebel. You try new things, different barks, stronger herbs, more aggressive scrubbing. You invent your own deodorant paste. It works for 4 hours. Then you smell like a sweet tree giving up on life. It's better than nothing. Let's talk about judgment. You try not to judge, but you do. You watch the younger ones skip washing days. You wrinkle your nose when someone walks by smelling like despair. You mutter things like, "They should steam more." You offer advice, unasked. You say, "Boil a little pine with moss and rub it under your arms." They roll their eyes. You say, "Worked for me when the raccoons wouldn't come near." Now they're interested. You don't brag, but you do carry a small pouch of dried sage at all times, just in case. Let's talk about body changes. Your skin is drier now. It flakes. You rub oils into it. Bare fat, rendered deer tallow, infused with wildflowers if you're fancy. It helps. You smell like warmth, like memory, like someone who once bled in the snow and kept walking. Your hair is thinner. You tie it up now, not out of style, but because it's annoying to have it in your soup. You find yourself liking solitude. Baths alone, steam lodges without shouting. Silence, clean silence. You lie by the fire, face freshly washed, armpits dried with a clean hide, and think, "This is what I fought for. A little peace, a little cleanliness, a back that doesn't ache every time." You wouldn't last a week living like this when you were young. But now you wouldn't give it up for anything. You wake up slowly these days, not because you want to, but because your bones hold long meetings before they let you move. You lie on your mat for a while, staring at the rafters of the longhouse, listening to the faint crackling of firewood and the rustle of people much younger than you moving around like their joints still function. You remember when you could do that. Spring out of bed, run to the creek, wash yourself with one cold splash, and no second thoughts. But that was many winters ago. Now, your body rises like a tired canoe through thick water. And your hygiene? It has evolved into something less private, more ritual, and far more humbling. You no longer scrub yourself fully. Your hands don't grip like they used to. Your knees don't bend the right way. Reaching your feet? That's a project requiring planning, prayer, and probably an assistant. And you have one. Your niece, or your daughter, or a quiet neighbor girl who's been assigned to check on you. She brings warm water in a carved bowl. She kneels beside you with cloth and herbs, and sometimes hums while she works. You sit, wrapped in blankets, and let her wipe your arms, your back, your face. She dabs behind your ears. She does not flinch when she reaches under your arms, even when the scent there makes your own eyes water. You thank her, every time, quietly. And sometimes, on the warmer days, someone walks you to the creek, slowly, carefully. Your knees shake with every step. Your hands grip theirs like roots. You don't talk much on the walk. The air is enough. The sounds. The memory of when your feet could dance across these same paths. You reach the edge of the water and lower yourself in. It's cold, but you no longer yell when it hits you. You just close your eyes and wait for the heat in your joints to surrender to the chill. Someone washes your hair. Someone scrubs your legs. You sit in silence and let them. Because now, cleanliness is not just a chore or a ritual. It's a gift. There are ceremonies for people like you, the elders, the old ones. You're no longer expected to help with firewood or hunt or carry baskets of squash. But you are expected to exist, to be clean, to be seen, to be present by the hearth when stories are told and decisions are made. You wear cleaner robes now when you can. You smell of cedar smoke and dried lavender tucked inside your sleeves. Someone applies oils to your feet in winter. Someone files your nails with a small stone. You are honored, you are tended to, and yet you are still a body. And bodies decay, slowly, imperfectly. You've lost teeth. Some came out easily, others cracked. There's no dentist, no floss, just patience and soft foods. You chew on the side that still works. You eat less. You drink more broth. Your breath isn't sweet, but it's not offensive either. People lean close when you speak. No one pulls away. You've earned that. You still rinse your mouth with hot water. Still rub a twig across your gums when they ache. Still hold on to dignity with both hands, even if those hands tremble. And then there are the smells. The ones you can't reach. The ones you can't fix. You catch them sometimes, rising from under your blanket, or clinging to your robes, or blooming after a long day sitting still. You don't always recognize them as yours, but they are, and you've made peace with that, because this is the smell of being alive for a long time, of surviving, of remembering, of not being washed away. Sometimes a small child climbs into your lap and wrinkles their nose. You chuckle. You pat their head. You tell them, "Wait, you'll smell like this too someday." You wouldn't last a week in this skin, young and impatient as you once were. But now, you would not trade this peace, this stillness, this right to smell a little like old wood and sleep. Because now you are sacred. You are worn, but clean in the ways that matter. You die quietly, maybe in your sleep, your breath slipping away like smoke from damp wood, maybe sitting by the fire, eyes closed, people thinking you're napping. Maybe someone holds your hand. Maybe no one does. But your body remains, and it still needs tending. Because even when your spirit drifts off toward wherever spirits go, the meat and muscle you carried around for decades decides to go out a little messier. You don't smell bad. Not yet. But you will. So the moment someone finds you, they act. Someone calls for water. Someone fetches cedar. Someone begins to boil herbs you once chewed for a sore throat. There is no morgue. No cold table under fluorescent lights. Just a mat. A fire. A body that still carries your shape. And the memory of your smell. Your niece comes first. Or maybe your cousin. The one who always sat beside you at meals. They wipe your face with a warm cloth. They speak softly. They start at your brow, clearing away the dried sweat. Then your neck, your arms, your chest. They clean you in silence, not for you, because you're gone, but for everyone else. Because death without washing feels like abandonment, and you're not being abandoned, you're being honored. Your joints are stiff, but your body is still warm. They move carefully. They know where it hurts, or where it would have hurt. They wash your feet last, because that's how it's always been done. Because feet carry the weight of your story. And even in death, they deserve kindness. You're wrapped in cloth, or soft bark, or fur if it's cold. You're anointed with oil, pine, if there's any left, or rendered fat mixed with herbs to keep the bugs away a little longer. Sometimes you're painted too, not for beauty, for the journey. The red clay on your cheeks, a reminder that you are still of the earth, even as you return to it. Your hair is brushed, your hands are folded, your body is placed facing the right way, east, or toward the river, or toward the last place the sun touched your skin. And yes, you are still scrubbed clean. Because decay will come soon enough. Because smell will bloom. Because no one wants to remember you with sour skin and unwashed armpits. They want to remember you as you were, alive, sharp, clean enough to hug. The burial comes. There may be songs, chants, a quiet meal. Someone might retell your best joke. Someone else might admit they used your moss towel and never told you. People will laugh. They'll cry. They'll lean over the mat where your body lies, and maybe they'll wrinkle their noses, but only slightly, because you've been cared for, because someone scrubbed you one last time, because someone whispered, "Thank you," while rinsing your hands in warm water. You wouldn't last a day as a corpse in this climate if no one cleaned you. But they did. Because here, even the dead deserve hygiene. Spring is a lie. It pretends to be gentle, with its blooming flowers and cool breezes and hopeful little birds. But spring is just a very wet, very soggy prank that drips down your neck and makes everything you own smell like mold and unspoken regrets. You try to bathe in spring, really. You walk to the creek, and the air feels soft. Then you step in and realize the snow just melted about 4 minutes ago, and now your toes are being filed off by glacier runoff. You yelp. You swear. You keep going because you haven't properly washed in 3 moons and your armpits are starting to hum in a new key. The spring cleanse is a ritual of pain. The water bites. The wind mocks you. You try to scrub with a root and it breaks in your hand. You end up doing a half-hearted rinse and pretending it was symbolic. You dry off with a damp shirt. You return to the longhouse and someone says, "You smell better." You beam. It's a lie, but a kind one. You survive spring with smoke baths. You sit near the fire, lift your arms, and let the pine smoke try its best. You sweat. You shuffle. You squint. You still smell like a wet squirrel's dream diary, but less pungent. Now comes summer, the season of bugs, sweat, and slow rot. The air is thick. Your skin is sticky. You bathe almost every day now, not out of luxury, but out of raw, sweaty necessity. Because summer means mosquitoes, and mosquitoes love a filthy person. You scrub your legs in the creek and they land on your forehead. You dunk your head under water and they bite your back. You cover yourself in crushed herbs, mint, cedar, wild garlic, and they still find the one spot you missed, your left butt cheek. You swat, you swear, you scream into the woods. You lose. And then there's the sweating. Every crease, every fold, every secret pocket of your body becomes a swamp. You peel your shirt off and it peels back. Your thighs stick together when you walk. You sit on a log and leave a stain. You try to sleep, but the heat sticks to your face like a wet fur pelt. You wake up in a puddle of yourself. You long for snow. But hey, your skin's glowing. That's the sweat. And the insect welts. Welcome to summer hygiene. Autumn arrives with relief. The bugs die. The air cools. You can breathe without tasting mildew. This is when you do your best cleaning. You dry your clothes properly. You hang your furs in the sun. You scrape your feet with stones and your teeth with twigs, and you start to smell like a functional human again. But autumn has a secret. It's the season of armpit revenge, because it's just warm enough that you still sweat under your layers, but just cold enough that you don't notice right away. So you go a few days without washing. Then someone sniffs and gives you the look. That you need to go down to the creek and handle that look. You do. You return refreshed. Then winter comes, and everything stops. You bathe less, a lot less. It's cold. The water is solid. The air hurts your face. You clean with snow when you can. You rub your hands and face and armpits with ice and pretend it's invigorating. It's not. It's punishment. You warm up by the fire and hope the heat bakes away the smell. It doesn't. You survive winter by layering. Furs over furs, cloaks over shirts, blankets around legs. You smell like a buried wolf, but so does everyone else. You sleep in your clothes. You eat in your clothes. You wrap your face in a scarf and ignore the itch on your scalp that's definitely lice coming back for round 2. No one judges, no one washes, you just wait. Wait for spring, wait for pain. Wait for the cycle to begin again. Because this is life in the mid-Atlantic before shampoo, before indoor plumbing, before temperature-controlled showers. This is survival through seasons that don't care how you smell. You wouldn't last a week trying to stay clean through all 4. But you do it every year. Group bathing. Yes, everyone together. Kind of, sort of. Don't make it weird. Let's get into it. You don't always bathe alone. In fact, most of the time, you can't, because creek access is communal. Soap root isn't infinite. And that perfectly flat rock you love to scrub your heels on, that's technically everybody's rock. So you learn to share space. You learn to rinse and splash and look anywhere but directly at someone else's everything. There are rules, unspoken but strictly followed. No staring, no loud farting, no splashing unless you want to be splashed back harder. No commenting on anyone's back hair, weird moles, or that one guy's unexplainably long toenails. You wait your turn to step in. You bring your own cloth or moss or bark scrubber. You bathe quickly, efficiently, with dignity. Mostly. Let's say you're in your 20s, midsummer. You and a group of 5 or 6 others head to the riverbank just after dawn, when the sun hasn't yet made the air thick enough to chew. You strip. Nobody says anything. You walk in. You hiss. Because it's still cold. Someone coughs. Someone mutters about fish. You crouch, shoulders hunched, rinsing your arms, then your chest, then, very carefully, your lower bits. You turn your back to the group and scrub fast. You dunk your head. You resurface like a gasping animal. Someone next to you sneezes into the water. You pray silently that the current is moving away from you. It is not. Still, you continue. You wash. You squeeze water through your hair. You rub your feet on a rock and scrape off what might have once been a leaf, or possibly a very old blister. And all around you, other people do the same. It's quiet, rhythmic, a strange sort of peaceful tension. Everyone is deeply aware of each other, and deeply pretending they're not. Let's talk gender separation. Sometimes, yes, bathing is divided. The women go downstream. The men go upstream. Why? Because people are disgusting and no one wants to wash their face in someone else's armpit runoff. But also, there are modesty expectations. No one says them out loud. But you know, if you're a woman, you probably keep your wrap on until the last second. You turn your back. You dunk fast. You whisper with your sister while she helps rinse your hair. You talk about who hasn't bathed in 3 days and who needs to. If you're a man, you might be louder, joking, shoving, pretending the water's not cold. It is. No one's fooled. But you get through it. Because bathing isn't a luxury. It's a duty. Not just to yourself, but to everyone who has to sit near you during mealtime. Let's talk scrubbing help. Because sometimes you need someone to get your back. And that means touching, which is fine, totally normal, totally not weird. Until your cousin leans in a little too close while rinsing your shoulder blade, and you realize neither of you knows where to look. So you both just stare at a tree, or the water, or your own hand. It's a quiet, respectful awkwardness. You thank them after. You both dry off. You never speak of it again. Now let's talk taboos, because not everything is allowed. There are times when group bathing is frowned upon. You don't do it during mourning periods. You don't do it during certain ceremonies. And if you're on your moon cycle, well, you bathe separately, in private, with extra herbs. Not because you're dirty, but because tradition says your body is going through something that needs space. So you do it alone. You come back later, clean, quiet, smelling like smoke and mint and a little bit of cedar oil if you're lucky. And no one says a word, but they notice. They nod. It's understood. This is how it is here. There is no shame. Just protocols and a deep, ancient understanding that even in a society without soap, cleanliness is shared. You wouldn't last a week in this bathhouse of silence and eye contact avoidance. But you do. Every moon cycle, every rinse, every slow walk back to the longhouse, dripping and slightly cleaner than before. Hair. Yes, hair. Long, knotted, glorious, and completely unforgiving hair. This is the chapter where we talk about tangles, lice, oil, rituals, and why no one in this era has time for bangs. Settle in. Your hair is everything. It's not just for show. It's identity. It's memory. It's tradition. It's also a giant, tangly liability if you don't deal with it daily. You're probably not cutting it. Not unless you're grieving. Not unless you've done something so bad, the only way to show penance is to shear it off and walk around feeling air on your neck like a shamed animal. So your hair grows. Down your back, over your shoulders, across your face if the wind's bad. And it gets wild, especially after a long day of sweating, running, and falling asleep face down in your mat while your braids try to fuse themselves into a single, sentient rope. Let's talk combs. You don't have a brush with plastic bristles and a smiling drugstore mascot on the handle. You have bone. Carved combs made from deer antler, or maybe smoothed wood if someone in your family has the time and patience. They're wide-toothed. They are not gentle. You wake up, grab your comb, and begin the ritual of regret. You sit on a stump. You part your hair with your fingers. You hit the first knot and make a noise that's somewhere between a gasp and a threat. You pull. It tightens. You pull again. It bites back. You consider shaving your head just for a second. But no, this is tradition. You grit your teeth. You keep going. After about 20 minutes, you've made some progress. You haven't cried, but your eyes are wet. A friend walks by. They see your face. They nod. They know. This is the price. Now let's talk help, because most of the time, you don't do this alone. Someone sits behind you. They parts your hair. They work gently. They know the terrain. They speak softly, or they don't speak at all. And they begin to comb. You sit there, trying not to move, not because of reverence, because you know if you twitch, they'll hit a snag and accidentally rip out a memory. They work from bottom to top, section by section. You smell the oil they've rubbed into their hands, maybe bare fat, maybe mashed acorns mixed with cedar. You feel their fingers, warm and practiced. You relax, a little, and by the time they're done, your hair is smooth, tidy, braided, maybe, tied with bark fiber, pulled back with respect. You thank them. You both act like that wasn't an emotional experience. Now let's talk lice, because yes, they exist, and they are rude. You notice them when your scalp itches for more than 2 days. You try to ignore it. You try to scratch discreetly. But eventually, it becomes obvious. You sit down on a mat. You lower your head. Someone leans in with a fine-toothed bone comb and starts the hunt. It's not glamorous. It's not fun. But it is weirdly intimate. They pull apart your hair and squint at your roots. They flick out tiny invaders into the fire. You sit there, ashamed and itchy, while they wage war on your behalf. Afterward, you smell like ashes and humility. You keep your hair wrapped for a while. You avoid lying in communal furs. You boil your headband and pray. It passes. Eventually. Let's talk ceremony. Because hair isn't just hygiene. It's symbolic. It's washed before big events. It's oiled before births and deaths. It's combed before you go meet someone's parents. If you're mourning, you might unbraid it. Let it hang wild and unruly. Or you might cut it, depending on your community. Either way, people notice. Hair tells your story. How long it's been since your last bath, whether you've had someone helping you, how tired you are. When it's clean, it shines. When it's dirty, it tangles and smells like damp bark and fermented sap. But no matter what, it's yours. You wouldn't last an hour trying to detangle a week's worth of knots with a sharpened deer rib and no conditioner. But you sit down, you grit your teeth, and you survive every single strand. Bathroom hygiene, or as it's known in your time, going into the woods and praying your foot placement is correct. Let's do this. You need to go. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. You need to relieve yourself. And no, there's no outhouse. There's no chamber pot. There's no dignified seat with a lid. There is a tree and a designated spot, and the vague hope that no one walks by while you're mid-squat, pants around your knees, trying not to tip over into your own shadow. This is waste disposal, 1400s edition, and it starts with scouting. You don't just stop anywhere. You're not an animal. You walk, away from the longhouse, past the cooking fire, past the drying fish racks, past the place where that one kid always tries to sneak and pee behind the logs. You go farther, because privacy matters, and so does distance. You don't want waste too close to water. You don't want it near food, and you definitely don't want it where the children play tag barefoot. So there's a designated place. It might be a pit, or a shallow trench, or just a well-worn patch of earth behind a big tree. If your group is large, there might be multiple spots, one for solids, one for liquids, one for anyone who's sick and shouldn't be mixing fluids with the general population. It's not labeled, obviously, but you know. And when you get there, you do the routine. You look around. You scan the trees for people, raccoons, or spirits of judgmental ancestors. You check your feet. You find a stick, just in case you need to draw lines, or balance, or poke something that shouldn't be there. You squat, you go, you exhale. Sometimes there's relief. Sometimes there's regret, especially if the wind changes or the ground is sloped wrong or you misjudged how spicy last night's stew really was. Now comes the fun part, wiping. You don't have paper? You have options. Moss, leaves, soft bark, if it's been soaked or chewed a little. If you're extra unlucky, snow. You choose wisely. You test the moss first. Too dry and it'll crumble. Too wet and you'll be walking weird for the rest of the day. You wipe. You wipe again. You check. Don't pretend you wouldn't. You bury it, or toss it in the pit, or burn it if you're fancy and paranoid about spirits tracking your waist. You stand, you stretch, you retie your wrap. You look around one last time, just to make sure no one saw your vulnerable squat. You walk back, no one asks, you don't talk about it. It's just part of life. Now let's talk latrine etiquette. Because there are rules. Unspoken, deeply respected rules. Like never follow someone immediately after they go. Always walk uphill afterward. Never, ever, ever step in anything squishy unless you're sure it's a mushroom. You also help dig the pit when needed. That's part of it. When it gets full, you cover it, mark it, leave it be. Sometimes someone forgets. Sometimes the ground shifts. Sometimes someone falls in. No one talks about those days. Let's talk illness. Because sometimes things go wrong. Your stomach churns, your gut boils. You spend all night running to the woods, clutching your belly, wishing you lived in a time with ginger tea and indoor plumbing. You sweat, you shake, you pray to every ancestor you've ever vaguely acknowledged. You wipe until your skin begs for mercy. You come back to the longhouse pale and empty, and someone gives you broth. Someone mixes herbs. Someone says, "It was probably the dried clams." You nod because you know. This is the glamorous, necessary, ancient truth of hygiene. It's not just about smelling good. It's about knowing where and how to relieve yourself without becoming a community hazard. You wouldn't last a single night in a forest bathroom during peak diarrhea season, but somehow, you make it through. Squat by squat, moss wipe by moss wipe. Dignity, gone. Survival, strong.